Hi, it's Becca and welcome back to my channel. This video is the first in a series I want to make on worded problems. So talking through some strategies around how to approach those multi-step worded questions which can present so many challenges, not just because of the maths but because there's a lot going on at once. It can be easy to feel overwhelmed, especially if you're not sure where to start. We're going to look at 3 strategies to make things feel more manageable and help you feel more in control. Firstly, process the problem, then extract the maths, and finally, represent the problem pictorially using diagrams, simple drawings, whatever works for you. Not to say that the steps need to be used in this order or that you even need to use all of them, or you might use them at the same time. They're just some strategies to try if you're struggling. So let's now look at these strategies in more detail. So the first step is to process the problem. You can do this in different ways depending on how your brain works. For me, I like to visualize the problem in my head, almost playing it out like a mini film. If it's an exam question, you could imagine yourself or someone you know in the scenario. That can just really help you to understand the sequence of steps. Some might find it easier to almost act out the steps, or others might want to talk it through out loud, even to a plant or your dog if there's no one else around to listen. Obviously, you can't do some of these things in an exam room, but when you're building up and practicing, they are things you can try. Next is extract the maths, and this can be really tricky, which is why understanding the question as a story or sequence can really help. So one strategy is to consider language in the question and get used to looking out for certain words or phrases. For example, if you see the word total in a question, that implies that several amounts have been added together or need to be added together. If a question mentions sharing or splitting something equally, it's likely there'll be some dividing to do. You can start to connect these operations with the steps of the question. And finally, represent the problem. And this goes back to the pictorial stage of the concrete pictorial abstract model I mentioned in my first video. It's not about creating artistic images, but using bar models, number lines, figures, charts, lines, or other simple diagrams which can help you to order your working out logically. Plus, and this is a huge one, so many people try to remember all of their working out in their head and just write down one answer at the end. That can be total cognitive overload and rarely ends well. So using diagrams alongside your calculations can help you to get your thoughts down where they can't get lost. So now we've talked about these strategies, let's try using them with 2 real-life scenarios. There'll be other videos focusing on specific topics and exam questions, but for now, let's just use some common situations. So scenario 1, we've got a recipe for macaroni and cheese, which serves 4 people, but we need to know how much of each ingredient we need to serve 5 people. So for this question, we'll need to scale the recipe up and keep the ingredients in proportion. Otherwise, we could end up with a big problem like too much pasta and not enough sauce. You obviously could use ChatGPT or something similar to figure this out for you, but having the skills to scale something up or down is really helpful because it can build your confidence and number sense and make you feel more empowered and less reliant on tech. So a good place to start when needing to scale up or down is to imagine or think about how much each person gets from the original recipe. Once you know that, you can work out the new amount needed for any number of people. So you could visualize handing each person their own little stack of macaroni, butter, flour, etc. But the idea is I'm sharing those ingredients out between 4 people. So this tells me I'm going to divide. If you'd like to have a look at my division strategies video, I will link it here. But for the first, my first way of representing the problem, I'm going to use a bar model. So the first ingredient, macaroni, we need 260 grams for 4 people. So I'm going to split that in half and in half again. That's divided it up by 4, and that means there'll be 65 grams per person. So the next thing I'm going to do, because I need enough for an extra person, is I'm going to add another lot of 65 grams onto there, and then I'm going to work out the new total. So you could either add 65 together 5 times, you could do 65 times 5, whatever you prefer to get the new amount, which is 325. Another way we could look at it is to use a sort of scaling up diagram. So it looks a bit like this. If we know that for 4 people we need 260 grams, then we divide each number by 4 to find the amount for 1 person. And then now, because we want to find the amount for 5 people, we would multiply that by 5. And we know that for 5 people, we would need 325 grams. This is just a really nice way to kind of show your steps logically and record your working out so that you can kind of go back and remember what you did to find the answer. One more way we could think of it is that for 4 people, that's kind of 100% of the recipe. And then if we need 1 more person, that's a kind of an extra 1 out of 4 people, which is an extra 25%. So we could think of it as we need 125% of the original recipe. So if we know that we need 125% of the original recipe, we could then use that and convert it into a decimal. So 125% as a decimal is 1.25. And if I multiply the original amount by 1.25, that is the same as increasing it by a quarter or increasing it by 25%. And it gives me the same answer, 325 grams. So that's a really useful kind of trick. If you've got a calculator, if you times any number by 1.25, it will increase it by 25%. So there are 3 different ways of representing this problem mathematically. So let's look at scenario 2. You have an agreed overdraft limit of £65 with your bank. If you go further overdrawn, you may be charged. Currently, your account shows minus £81. How much will you need to pay into your account to avoid being charged? So here we're talking about an overdraft, which tells me that we're going into negative numbers. So an overdraft limit of £65 means we can go to minus 65 without being charged, but we've gone to minus 81, which is kind of further beyond that. So when we're thinking about negative numbers, often using a number line can help. Lots of people like to use a horizontal one like this, where we've got 0. We know that kind of moving to the right, we're adding, moving to the left, we're subtracting, and possibly going into negative numbers. Personally, when working with negative numbers, I like to use a vertical number line. And I almost imagine kind of being in a lift and going sort of up and down. So 0 is like ground level. If you add, you're sort of going up floors, and if you subtract, you're kind of going down. I just find that easier to visualize and imagine sort of moving between the floors. So something you could try. So if I know that I can go down to minus 65 without being charged, I just make a little kind of note of where roughly that might be. And I can see that I've gone even further down. So I've gone down to negative or minus 81. So what I want to do almost is decide how many floors would I need to go back up to be on minus 65. And the way I might do that is to think of it in steps. So I could think to get up to minus 80, I would need to go up 1 floor, or thinking about the context of pounds, I'd need to add £1. From minus 80, if I went up 10 floors, I would now be on minus 70. And now to get from minus 70 to minus 65, I'd need to go up another 5 floors or add on another £5. So I've now gone from minus 81 up to minus 65, and I need to work out my total jump. So I've got 10, 5 and 1, which altogether would make a jump of 16. So I'd need to pay in £16 to avoid being charged and get back up to minus 65. So that brings us to the end of this video. I really hope you found that useful and might be able to try out some of those strategies. If there are any particular questions you're struggling with, I'd love to hear. Please let me know in the comments. Remember to like the video if you found it useful, subscribe to the channel to be notified about future videos. And yeah, thank you very much for watching, and hopefully see you in my next video.